So if you haven't seen our video on how to make the focaccia dough, go back and watch that, and this will get you to the point where your focaccia is ready to go. We have our dough ready, so what I'm going to do is I'll just treat them as, I'm going to divide both of them and then I'll do one at a time. So this is dividing your focaccia in two, and again, you know, when you think about the cost and effort to do this, it really is incredibly affordable to be making focaccias. So we're putting in our olive oil. And I want to divide the dough in two. When I divide my dough in two, it's always easier to tip it out and put it into a container and then divide it that way rather than dividing it in the container. So again, I'm just going to go up and we'll just tip it in. And it is a sticky dough, so you want to try and minimize handling without oil on your hands. So then what I want to do is I want to do half of it, again, oil on my fingers, so half in each pan, and just run my hands through till I kind of break it in two. Reasonably happy with the halves. Wet side down. And there I have my two doughs ready to go. So what I'm going to do is just spread them out. And you know, when you're doing this, it means that if you're just doing it for yourself at home, you could just make a focaccia and have it as a bread that you can cut up to make sandwiches and stuff, and then you could do a signature something. If you have people coming over, you could do a couple of different dishes, and again, you're just working from the same dough. So if you had a 9-inch pie dish, you could do 3 of them, and you could do 3 different flavors. So it just, you know, it makes home baking very easy. So these are our two doughs, and again, what we're going to do is we're going to let these rest, and then these will be the toppings that will go on them. For the Philly cheesesteak, we will season our focaccia. We'll use some garlic granules, salt and pepper. I don't particularly use the focaccia seasoning with this because it's not really the whole chili Philly cheesesteak flavor. With this one, I will put on a tomato sauce and put some seasoning on top of that, and then put everything in on top of it. So we'll put these over to proof, and I'll be back. So we're going to do one of our signature focaccias. We're going to do our Philly cheesesteak. So what we need and what you get on your Philly cheesesteak is you have a green onion, a green pepper, an onion, and some mushrooms. So I'm just going to get all these cut up, and I will then get my beef ready. So let's start with our onion. And you know, and if you like mushrooms, or you don't like mushrooms, you don't have to put them in. And again, if you weren't a fan of yellow peppers, you can put in a red pepper, but this is kind of more keeping to the traditional Philly cheesesteak recipe. And when we're doing this, layering our flavors is really important. So when we put our dough in our pan, we will season the dough, and we'll put some of our focaccia seasoning on that, and we'll also add in a little bit of black pepper, and then we'll also season our beef, and then we'll season our vegetables, because you need those layers of flavoring when you're doing it, because that's really how you actually get that real kind of sub flavor. So our green onion, bell pepper. I know you can edit out when I say the wrong words, which is going to be a lot of today. And just for anybody who's cutting, always hold things with your knuckles, not with your fingers, and you can actually cut with no fear of chopping your fingers off. Put our pepper in, and then our mushrooms. I'm just not a fan of having too long of the stems because it just makes it easier for cutting, but if you like the stems, leave them on. And mushrooms in particular, you know, they really need to be well seasoned if you're going to get any flavour out of them. So that's my veg ready to go, and now I am going to get my beef organised. So for this, I've just taken a bit of, this is a beef, it's a top round steak, and what I'll do is just cut it, I want like kind of long strips, so, and when it's out of the freezer and it's still a bit cold, it makes it so much easier to work with than if you're using it where it's at room temperature, because you know we still have a little bit of time before it gets into the oven and it will warm up then, particularly after we season it. So this is our beef, and into our bowl. So now we get on to the important thing, which is seasoning. So we need to season our meat and our vegetables for our focaccia. So to season our beef, what we need is, these are, let's get my seasonings out. So I have some salt, pepper, garlic, onion granules. So we want a teaspoon of salt, and when you're seasoning beef, salt is the most important seasoning you're going to do, because that'll draw out all the flavour of the beef. We need some pepper, and again I'm doing about half of that, what I had with the salt, and I'm going to do put some garlic granules. I'm just going to do a light dusting of this. So I do my garlic, and I'll do some onion. Again, just a little. And then we want to mix all that up. And you just let that sit, and after a while you'll see it'll start to glisten, that the salt will start to draw the moisture out of the beef. So for our vegetables, so when we're seasoning our vegetables, the important thing with the vegetables is, firstly we have to put oil over them, because if we don't, they will burn. And we can also want to add our cheese in. So we add in our cheese and we mix everything through. Could have used a bigger bowl. Should have used a bigger bowl, but that's okay. And you need a good coating of oil on this, and we're also going to do a coating of oil on the beef, but I'm just going to let it sit for a little while first. And mixing that through, that'll stop everything burning when we put it on top. And we can just put that, oh yeah, sorry, before I do that, yes, I am not wiping my hands on my apron. This is not being a good boy. Okay, and we want to season our vegetables, and for this, I'll just use some of the Focacia seasoning and a little bit of pepper. So our Focacia seasoning is equal parts rosemary, thyme, basil, oregano, and garlic powder. And again, you need that flavour on your vegetables when you're doing it, because it's not like when you would normally make a Philly's cheesesteak where you're putting everything together and mixing it through. Everything is there, and it's while it's cooking on the Focacia, there's no actual mixing going on. And a little bit of pepper always goes well with that. I'd like to be a little more liberal with my pepper. And okay, I'll mix that through. And then this is the error you make when you don't use a big enough bowl. like I don't have 50 million bowls, so I'm going to just go and swap that because that's going to drive me mental. So we just mixed our everything together, transferred it to a bigger bowl, so it makes it an awful easier. So you can see that's now well seasoned, ready to go, and we have our beef, and that's seasoned. What I'll actually do, but just before I put that to one side, let's give it a little drizzle, and it's all the same seasoning, so it doesn't matter that my fingers are still got seasoning from the vegetables on it because it's all mixed together. It's all going the same place. So we'll put those to one side. Okay, so now we're ready to do our two signature focaccias. So we'll do our Philly cheesesteak and our Italian sub, and you can see the way how beautifully they've risen. And you see when I divided it by eye, this one had a slightly bit more than that one, but that's okay. So again, what we'll do is we want to do our indentations and see how soft and bubbly that is. And just think about how easy this is. Literally, you just put things in the focaccia bucket and walked away and let it do its thing. For our flavors on our two signature focaccias, this is our Philly cheesesteak and our Italian sub. So when we think about flavoring our focaccias, think about the flavors that go well with these subs. So for the Philly cheesesteak, what you would generally see people put it on it, they'll put salt, pepper, garlic. So that's what we're going to put on this. I need to get some of the... So I have some nice coarse salt. So I'll just put a little bit of this over. We'll get some pepper. And we'll get some garlic granules. And I'm going to go also with a little bit of the onion granules. So now that I have kind of my flavor profile down, I'll apply my meat, but before I do that, so I don't get my fingers dirty, I'm going to do my exact same seasoning option on this. So for the Italian sub, so for my Philly cheese, I'm first going to spread my meat, and I want to have a nice layer of that. And again, that's all really well seasoned. You can see it's starting to glisten, and we also put some oil over that to stop it burn. And you would think that, you know, putting this in the oven for 20 minutes at 425, that it'll just you'll just cremate the meat, but you actually don't, and we don't, because there's all of this on top. That's all our onion and our cheese and our peppers. And that's giving it a good thing, and see also you can see how well seasoned all of that is. So then that's lots of salt and pepper, and really you're not seeing any of the meat. So the meat is essentially going to stew in there with the vegetables. So these are our two signature focaccias ready to go in the oven. Now we're ready for both of our signature focaccias. Oh, they smell fantastic. And you can see the bubbling inside. So things are, you know, you can still see the things aren't overcharred or overcooked because we've had so much vegetables in there. So we just need to leave these sit for a second, and then we'll take them out of the container. Take our Philly cheese first. There we go. You can see baked, nice crunchy sides, lovely topping. That goes over here. So we'll just let those cool down for a minute and we'll try them. So So we're with our signature Focacia. So this is our Philly cheesesteak. So underneath this we have a layer of our beef. You see our steak layer there, and you can see how it's, you know, it's kind of a little bit pink because it doesn't get overcooked because of all the vegetables on top, and then you can see the cheese all melting on it. That is extremely good. And it's important that you have the seasoning on your dough and then on your vegetables and your meat, so you season every aspect of it. Well, that is yummy. So I hope you enjoyed that recipe, and if you have any ideas for recipes that you would like to see, put them in the comments below. We're always looking for new ideas, and we're always looking to do a bit of experimenting with our Focacia. And thanks for watching. Subscribe.